Welcome everyone, this is Planet Needles and you're listening to LOTRO Players News, where we take a look at lasers in LOTRO and hear LOTRO players. And this week we have with us Sanswinda!
Hello.
And Krister.
Hello.
Hello everyone, are you ready to buckle up and go into the patch notes for this week?
Okay, ready. I'm ready.
I think I'm as ready as I can get. I've got some snacks.
Yes, some snacks.
Dang it, why didn't I think about that? I could have been eating some Cheetos while we did this. Let's get it.
Yes, we will start out with a special note, Angmar Reborn Karndoom, where after suffering countless setbacks and defeats, the last remnants of the Iron Crown have returned to Karndoom, hoping to wield a lost artifact of Witch King of Angmar to win domination over the free peoples of Middle-earth, aid the hillmen of the North and their allies in the fight to cast off the Iron Crown once and for all. We only hope so. This update features 3 new instances, and soon there will also be a raid for level 140 players set in a reimagined Karndoom. Players who wish to aid the fight against the Iron Crown should travel to Beolavark in Angmar. Beolavark can be reached via the Stable Masters in Esteldine, Garthforthir, and Rivendell. Beolavark can initially only be accessed via Stable Master routes, but other options for swift travel are available for barter from the stewards of the Iron Home. Yes, the only problem is that these options are available for barter if you've completed the raid that hasn't been released yet.
Ah. A mystery wrapped in some popcorn, probably. But
Probably in some popcorn.
yeah, that was certainly a topic of discussion last night when we were running it. Was
Yes,
you have to do this, but this isn't released yet. So what? Yeah, so looking forward to that being released, so we can actually perform the.
so you can actually get that port. Yes. Until then, you'll either have to use a milestone setting in order to that, because there is a milestone there, so you can get there that way, of course. But the only character I've had who's been going there lately has only one milestone. That milestone is to Rivendell. The character wants to get to Rivendell more than wanting to get to Angmar, and besides, the 3 Stable Master routes that there are, one of those is in Rivendell.
Kindly, are you saying you don't have a Gandalf port?
I don't have a Gandalf port. I don't.
Yeah, you know the one where you run up and you talk to Gandalf and he insta-travels you to Rivendell with his super fast travel skills?
But usually when I go to Rivendell, I want to go to the place where the port drops you off at, not where Gandalf drops you off at.
Well, fair. It's still Rivendell, though.
Oh, well. Let's now head into the news and notes for classes. And there are a huge number of class changes here, and I'm not going to go through every one of these. But trait points have been reset for captains, hunters, and wardens. So
I can confirm that.
You've checked all 3 of them?
Oh yeah, yep.
Okay.
What is really and I think this is just a old player problem here, but I have like 6. I had 6 builds that I had accumulated over the time in my trait trees, and so what's really frustrating is the timeout that they put in switching your trait trees. So you want to go through and reset them really quick, but then you can't remember what one was named, so you click over on that one, and that wasn't the one you wanted. So now you got to wait. Now you got to wait until the timeout, the timer expires, so you can switch your trait tree again. So,
and then if you're like me, you think, wait a second, what did I just see on that one?
Yeah. So that was. I think that was just needed, honestly, because things have changed in the trait trees, and so you really did need to figure out how you wanted to trait based on that too. So
there is that.
So it was justified.
Let's then head into the individual classes. Bjornings! The trait Desperate Shouts has changed as follows. Tier 1 reduces the cost to execute the next wrath-consuming skill by 50%. Tier 2 reduces the cost to execute the next wrath-consuming skill by 100%. This does not include execute itself. This no longer only affects your healing skill. Any skill that would normally consume wrath now consumes the Desperate Shout buff. Grimbjorn's strength now appropriately increases the potency of Hearten when used on a marked ally, and Leveling Roar no longer reverts to takedown when dual wielding. As for Brawlers, the Brawler mounted combat skill Reckless Attack now references the Brawler, not the Bjorning, as the affected class. I'm sure everyone's happy to see that. And low strike setup and now results in a substantial power restoration effect if it is used with a finisher. This is in addition to the existing vulnerability effect if you spec for it. The power cost of some brawlers' more expensive skills has been reduced slightly. The power return from low strike finisher has been reduced. The debuff from Gut Punch has been reduced from 20% to 10%. And One for All now reduces incoming damage rather than increasing mitigations. It reduces damage by 10 to 20% depending on how many allies are hit. This should make the skill stronger for players with low armor and mitigation values, and slightly weaker for those players with very high mitigation values. And NA Strength Trace Potency has been returned to its original state. Original values, yes. Now for the Burglar! Fix an issue causing stealth effect tooltips to incorrectly state that you received plus 100% critical chance for surprise strike and cunning attack even if you had not earned the improved sneak trait. Double-edged strike and finishing blade are now frontal area of effect attacks with 5 base targets. Settle Stab now restores power, and Provoke critical chance buff no longer disappears immediately. Now for the Captain.
I'm ready.
Alright. First, a note about X-Brother skills. Shield Brother and Song Brother have switched trait lines. Blue Line Captains now have Shield Brother skills primarily oriented towards helping a tank ally. Yellow Line Captains will have a Song Brother skills primarily oriented towards helping a healer ally. However, the effects from these skills have been changed, so you don't simply get your Dash Brothers effect thrown back at you. Generally, your personal effect will be different and targeted at your current role. Now, Hands of Healing, they go through a huge number of trait changes and skill changes. I'm going to ask Krister, are there any highlights you have in Hands of Healing that you want to discuss?
Not really. It's but the speculation is there because, of course, now they didn't eliminate the res. So you like the res for the yellow line and the red line, you can trade it up. And so what's really nice about it is that it will bring up an ally at 100% morale and 75% power, fully traded. However, you don't bring 2 people up anymore. So the main thing with the blue line, and knowing that now the two-person res is exclusively blue line, is are the healing skills potent enough where you might be able to do a primary blue line tank? I don't really think so, but I'm curious in trying it just to see if you can still maintain that two-person res while still being able to tank. I have almost no confidence, but it's an interesting thought. So,
Okay.
So yeah, not really. In terms of the the actual configuration of the blue line. Not too much to say at this point. I think I'm just going to dive into a blue line build and see what it does.
Okay, but you said you had something like 6 builds or something like that?
Yeah, I went a little crazy over the years. And
okay, so you have
PvE,
room to experiment
PvP,
with one then.
Yes, yeah. So I definitely will be able to do that. And
Okay.
I have a blue line trait line build that I had before. So, and that was for raiding almost exclusively. So it was a tanky blue build, anyways. And so I think I'm going to try that again and see what I can accomplish with it.
All right. So Vince says blue line Cappy tank with final boss in sewers. That's his suggestion. Now let's have lead the charge. Any comments about captaining in the new lead the charge?
Well, I think the main things I noticed last night when we were doing our 6-man was that, and I think everybody agreed with this, is that aggro is a lot more squirrely now, and so it really is. There's an element to timing in these skills as well, because of course the most frustrating thing of all time is that you have your melee time. You do have we do generate threat on other skills now too, but I didn't. I just haven't played it enough, but it didn't feel like that threat factored into anything I was doing. It was my main taunt skills, and then I was noticing that my melee taunt sometimes just didn't work. And then, of course, the worst thing is to pop that AOE taunt off, get everybody to turn towards you, and then 3 seconds later they've turned back to everybody, and you don't have them anymore. And that happened on several occasions last night. So it's definitely more, more active, and people have to be, of course, in the rating stuff, people have to be more conscientious of what they're doing as well. If you're a lore master who's, like chain lightning people, and then everybody attacks you, maybe you shouldn't chain lightning anybody. What were you using?
That was lightning storm.
I remember, I think you used it a couple times. You're like, maybe I shouldn't use this skill because everybody comes running towards me when I trigger it.
Well, I learned to be a little bit more
prudent in its
prudent when I choose to use it. Let's say.
Yeah, so it looks like the tanking is going to be a little bit more interesting, just because it feels like it's a bit harder now for me to hold aggro. Of course, another interesting change, and I think the change that everybody's kind of curious about, was what was going to be the change in power. And of course, the one thing you noticed right away was that your power, you have a heck of a lot more power than you used to. I don't know how much you had like 130,000, if I'm not mistaken. Is that close to what you had? Maybe it wasn't you that was saying that, but
it might have been somebody else. I don't recall having 130,000.
Okay, yeah, because I had Christopher was at 107,000 basically. So it felt like you had a huge power pool, but yeah, I was going through it like water. I wasn't running out of power when we were fighting, but I was definitely getting down into a quarter power, an eighth of power. So I was definitely getting down into the realm of I guess it was enough to think that lore masters being batteries again is going to be very viable.
I do remember using it on a couple of occasions, but I wasn't incomplete. I should be looking at this mode because I occasionally check it. Looks like somebody needs power.
Yeah, it wasn't like we were desperate for power all the time. It was just, but it was still a factor that we still needed to kind of pay attention to.
Then let's head into yellow line, leader of men.
So that's the thing. Lead the charge. I didn't really get to play red line last night. So, but the yellow line again. It felt just pretty good. It was just the aggro being a little more squirrely was the more frustrating thing. Because of course, after all these years of raiding, we still don't raid like raiders where we have everybody stand. Later on, I suggested everybody stand in one place because when the mobs generate, at least they're all running to one place where I can hit them all with my AOE if I can. But it's just being more conscientious of that, of the fact that my aggro isn't quite as effective as it used to be. So I have to be paying a lot of attention. But I think as a tank, I typically do pay a pretty good amount of attention to what's going on. So, but if I can stop you guys from dying, that's the main thing. And I think for the most part, people lived.
All right.
But the tank line is going to be the one I'm going to be doing primarily still, anyways. I'm sure. But basically, I guess my only it's not even a complaint. It's just that the nature of aggro's changed just a little bit, and I've got to figure out how to best compensate for that as well.
Yeah.
And that means, does it have the rules changed as well? Is there something how the classic, you have the ranger tag it and then you hit it right afterwards, and then that should put you right at the top of the aggro list, and you should be able to stay there. So is that going to be the case still, or is it just going to be that tanks have to work harder for aggro?
Oh, we will have to see. Let's head into general skills. Defensive Strike. This is a standard melee skill which gives you the battle ready buff. It is has 15 second cooldown. All right.
Yeah, now battle ready is great, and so I think that's their main thing that they wanted to kind of emphasize, was that the idea is to be in a battle ready state as much as you possibly can, and then saving skills or abilities that cash that out for extreme circumstances, basically. So.
Also, Fighting Withdrawal has lost its parry buff. For captain specializing in yellow, this parry buff has been shifted to Hammer Stroke.
Yes, yep. And that's not too bad, actually, because that Hammer Stroke is something I use a lot more frequently in terms of a skill. So there again is having the that capability to be able to put that into your defensive strategy when you need to is really nice. And then with the Hammer Blow, it just feels like I'm more frequently applying that as well.
Cleanse Corruption generally retains its 15-second cooldown, but when used while battle ready, it has a 5-second cooldown instead.
Yeah, that was awesome. But I think that makes up for the Blade of Elendil. Because I don't, unless I missed it, that was the corruption removal on that is gone.
Right. Yeah, we'll discuss that one next.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yes. Now, did that change in the cooldown while battle ready have any effect during last night when we were having all those corruptions to go against?
Well, once we knew that the corruptions were a factor, that was what was great about it, was the 5-second cooldown is really nice. So that was, I believe, that was purely a compensation for the potential removal of it from Blade of Elendil. But it was, I felt that worked really well.
Okay. Grave Wound. Oh, no, let's go to... No, Blade of Elendil no longer removes corruptions and no longer has a forced taunt when you're specialized in the yellow line. Blade of Elendil no longer gives allies a chance to deal additional light damage. It now gives allies a 10-second buff, increasing their light damage, shadow mitigation, and critical defense.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I actually like that quite a bit.
Okay. Grave Wound now has an inherent 15% block, parry, evade, resistance penetration.
Yeah, that's nice.
Okay. The Muster Courage resistance buff has been reduced, and this skill now only affects members of your fellowship.
That's kind of a bummer.
Well, last night it wasn't a problem, but when we get to our first raid after
yeah,
the update, I guess it would be.
Well, and of course the question at that point is that why, is the impetus there really to say, okay, when you're raiding, you really want 2 captains. You want a captain in each party, or else you're not going to get the some benefits. So maybe that's just to encourage captains to join parties.
Uh-huh.
I'm a big fan.
Okay. The effects of motivating speech now last for 20 minutes. How long did it last before?
I can't remember for the life of me, but I don't know. It was right around that time period. I mean, it used to be that you could. Well, it's changed over the time. It used to
Yeah.
just be it was on all the time, or that you toggled it on once, or that lately that you had to keep refreshing it. So in keeping refreshing it, I don't know. I've just gotten into the habit of hitting it a lot, especially because of getting mocked. I'm sure you've been there.
Yeah.
Are we motivated yet? Are we motivated yet? Are we motivated? So yeah, so it's I didn't really pay attention to that one too much because I'm probably hitting that skill relatively frequently anyways. So,
Okay.
But that'll be interesting to play out. I mean, 20 minutes. I think it's longer, but I just can't remember because I was just using that so frequently. Every time somebody dies or you always want to make sure that you have that up and running, and then of course you go, oh no, did I hit that? Well, nobody's been complaining, so I guess I have had it up. So
I wouldn't even notice it. So yes, time of need now costs a percentage of your max morale to use, and will restore a significant amount of power to you, in addition to its existing effects.
I don't know how I feel about that one. As of yet, I'm never a fan of percentage morale because I especially if you're dealing with opponent skills, it's always frustrating to understand their concept is the more powerful you are, the more vulnerable and weak you are to everything, and the more damage you take. And I don't think that's how it works, frankly. So,
And Escape from Darkness. The induction duration for this skill has been reduced from 4 seconds to 0.8 seconds. This induction will not be set back by damage.
Yes, that was what was nice, was when I did have the time where I was trying to res somebody and I was under heavy attack, they couldn't interrupt it and I was able to res the person. So that was really nice. However, it's not the 2-person res, so that's the main frustration with that one.
All right. Then let's head over to traceries. Unless you have something to say about specialization-based variants.
Nope.
Okay. Traceries. A few traceries have had their values adjusted slightly, or their passive stat changed. One tracery has been made obsolete by the changes above, and a couple of new ones have been added. No existing traceries will be removed. Please do not delete your existing traceries. Okay?
If they're asking that, I wonder if somebody did.
Noble Mark damage has become Noble Mark buff and debuff potency. And battle readied and battle hardened traceries. These traceries have had their values shifted out into the base effects. For endgame players, this will likely mean little to no change, but it has been an improvement for anyone lower levels or with less optimized LIs. Muster Courage, Fear Resist. This value of this tracery has been reduced. At the 4 healing, this tracery increases melee healing from at the 4. And in Harm's Way damage reduction, this tracery reduces damage taken by Fellowship members while in Harm's Way is active. And as for other changes relating to the Captain Update 35, Rallying Cry now executes faster for all player types. Note that this also affects some other skill classes such as Ignore the Pain.
That's nice.
Okay, and Herald and Archer damage has been adjusted at lower levels.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see how this plays out. One thing I did notice is that my Herald did at times manage to pull aggro from things that we were fighting, and that's always what you would hope. You hope your Herald can do is to assist you in that manner. So, one thing I don't do in Yellow Line is I really don't trade up my Herald at all because I'm just focused more on either my improvement or the improvement of things that improve the party. But I'm curious to see how powerful the heralds actually are now, because it definitely is nice when your herald can hold its own for a while and take some damage doing it. Because that can be a very, especially when you're solo too. That's a really nice thing to have. But if it can maintain aggro in a party combat situation, maybe I was thinking of maybe trying to use him more aggressively too. Is to oh wait, I can't. He can't attack anymore because of reasons. So he'll just be a very angry ghost. He'll look very angry, but he won't do anything. So.
What, the ghost can't attack anymore?
Or no, they can't. They can't be on their aggressive stance, I guess.
You meant that? Yes. Okay.
Sometimes it's just nice to let them go.
Champions.
Sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was just going to sum up, and I'm looking forward to seeing just how impactful the heralds are now, but I haven't had a chance to gauge that yet.
All right, then let's head into the champion. The stun gained from Athletic now only applies when you use a damaging melee skill. Fervor no longer increases power regen in Redline. Continuous Blood Rage now reduces power cost by 75% down to 20%. Second Wind has been moved to Tier 1 to easier access to other lines, and its update grades have been moved to Tier 4 to make them more expensive for non-tanks to access. Alright, so Second Wind has moved to Tier 1, and its upgrades have been moved to Tier 4. Okay, now I see. So therefore, they would make it easy to get Second Wind, but difficult in order to make it very powerful. Mighty Roar now inflicts physical damage and has been scaled up considerably. Fixed Fervor tooltip display of skill damage bonus. Bracing Attack is now a ratings-based heal, which scales its potency with your character's level. And resolve the skill execution delay after some skills. For the Guardian, Brutal Charge now only stuns enemies when you use a damaging melee skill. In other words, no more brutal charging and following it up with a non-damaging skill, I guess. And Guardian's Ward now restores a small amount of power when used. And power costs have been reduced for most basic offensive skills. Now for Hunters. Sans, have you played your Hunter much since the update?
No, I knew I was going to have to respend all of those trait points and decided to not do that right away.
Well, there is that. So here's what you have to look forward to doing then. Archer's Mark will no longer overwrite a Master Trapper incoming damage debuff. Heartseeker incoming healing debuff can no longer be cleansed. Several changes have been made to redistribute power recovery mechanics in order to make them more accessible across build options. Endurance Stance now reduces power costs by minus 10%, going to minus 20%. And Press Onwards Heal is no longer a percentage of maximum morale, but scales with level instead. Press Onward no longer grants power, but instead grants a run speed buff for 10 seconds.
Which is just weird, because if you have Press Onward, you're probably in the blue line and running fast anyway.
Let's say as this one goes to 11.
Perseverance trait increased, going from 7.5 to 10% to 10, 15, 20, 25%. So that's okay, going up a bit. Perseverance trait increased, Actually, we just talked about that. Burn hot now increases power costs rather than reducing them. I guess because burn hot is you're doing more damage, so you're using up more power in order to do that. Bow of the Righteous trait has moved from the blue tree to the red tree at a similar level. Now, Sans, do you use Bow of the Righteous too much?
Yeah, it was pretty nice. And I guess they're continuing to try to make Blue Line harder to play. I don't know.
Bow of the Righteous now grants an active skill rather than a passive ability. It is now a 15-second buff with a 90-second cooldown that causes all hits with ranged attacks to restore a substantial amount of power. Right? And this is in red line for what reason? Okay. The trait.
Right?
Yeah.
But I guess. Oh well.
Yeah. Maybe blue line doesn't have any power trouble, so they moved the skill over to the red line.
Maybe. That would be a good reason, I suppose.
Yes. The trait draw weight has had its max rank reduced by 1. Improved intent concentration has been moved from tier 3 to tier 2 to improve accessibility to red-yellow trees. Power restore value has been rebalanced to be significantly better. Strength of the Earth is no longer a channel effect, but a 5-second power overtime restore. Upon expiration, it provides a plus 10% damage buff for an additional 20 seconds. This trait can now be ranked up to rank 2 for an additional 15% bonus to the buff. Oh, and Sam is noting the fact that he just had to set his clock forward an hour. And improved beneath notice's power overtime restoration has been shortened to match the duration of the threat buff, and its values have been rebalanced. And Barrage Finals cooldown has been reduced from 15 to 12 seconds.
Which is almost good. They just need to take 12 more seconds off.
Yes. For the Lore Master, Water Lore now has an initial healing component, and I'll have to admit that I didn't really realize that it didn't have one before. I think it was in the middle of the beta where I finally realized, it was about the time I realized that, oh, I don't get any healing until 3 seconds later. Light of Hope's base cooldown has been reduced from 30 to 10 seconds. Share the Power's cooldown increased to 30 seconds. Share the Power Fellowship cooldown increased to 45 seconds. And power costs and power restoration values have been adjusted. So, yes. That means you need to be more judicious, I guess, when you share power then, since it's going to be 30 seconds before you're going to be able to do it to anyone else. And I have to tell you that last night, when I used that skill during the sewers run, I unlocked the skill saying, "Hey, you used the skill for the first time!"
Well, I guess that's not quite like having your horse level in front of a bunch of, max levels, realizing that you've valored your character at that point,
Yes. Oh, yeah. Minstrel. The supreme armor of the Vigilant Watcher no longer allows you to go past tier 5 of Snowball, which unlocked perfect ending. I mean, I'm just wondering is why on earth this is because no, okay, I guess I'm not too sure what Snowball is then, because increased power cost and healing for bolster courage and triumphant spirit. Major Ballad Resonance now restores power when used. Well, that's good. Coda of Fury now restores a small amount of power when used. Power Restore and improved Anthem of Composure has been improved. Power cost has been reduced for most basic offensive skills. Cry of the Wizards inflicts damage earlier in its skill execution. Chord of Salvation is no longer an immediate skill. The trait Pause for Breath now increases the power restored by Major Ballad Resonance. And the Echo from Thunderous Codas applied by Coda of Fury now deals the same damage that the skill tooltip displays. Oh, what a thought. And Dorlin says, the only issue that I have with mini changes, very hard to get anthems going. When you have to start healing tank and others in the group before you can get more than 2 ballads up. Then you start trying to just keep people alive and not able to get a second anthem up, much less a third or fourth. This is mostly in boss fights, but still would be good to have those anthems up.
They really spoiled us with the anthems a few updates back.
Yeah. All right. Runekeepers. Runekeeper skills can no longer be affected by both disarms and silences.
Yay!
I think what they meant is that each of the skills is affected by one or the other. It's just that
Right.
none of them are
They're
affected by
not
both.
vulnerable to both, and then sometimes never able to be used.
Yeah. And Fire, Lightning, and Frost skill-based damage has been increased by 10%. Epic Conclusion damage has been increased considerably. Now, I felt that my Runekeeper, I guess in mid-levels Runekeeper, felt pretty powerful, so I guess this is something that was needed because of higher level Runekeepers.
Probably.
Yeah, because that's going to be my guess, is because I have one in the 90s, and I don't know, I just felt like everything's melting whenever I use any skills.
Yeah, it's melting, but if it survives, then aren't you dead? Don't you melt at that point?
Not quite, yes. Because then the second skill kills them. Yes. Vivid Imagery and Fulgurate Runestone damage reduced slightly. Vivid Imagery radius increased by 1 meter, so it should hit targets that appear to collide with the visual effect. So in other words, because it's going out an extra meter in there, the damage distribution is slightly reduced, I guess. Volcanic Runestone damage increased. Drive Spark and damage increased, and attunement generation increased from 1 to 2. This argument cooldown reduced by 0.3 seconds, and the skill execution sped up slightly. Frost skills no longer change your attunement. Frost skills now have no attunement cost rather than building battle attunement. So they're in a way neutral, I guess, in effect. The Essence of Winter effect debuff can no longer be cleansed. Attunement now increases frost damage as your attunement moves away from neutral on both sides of the attunement spectrum. So in other words, you need to use something else in order. I guess if you're healing, then that makes your frost skills good ones to do when you're going back and forth between doing damage and healing. Closing remarks now increases the critical chance of epic conclusion. You can no longer proc harsh debate, thunderous works, or closing remarks while aftershock is active. These buffs are meant to build into one another, and there was a tendency for harsh debate and thunderous words to proc soon after using epic conclusion, combining into closing remarks and overriding aftershock entirely. Rune Sign of Winter is now correctly classified as a tactical skill. Scribe a New Ending now attunes 2 pips towards neutral, down from 3. Updated icons for several heal over time skills to differentiate between them from Writ of Health. Now, I didn't play my Runekeeper since the update, so I haven't noticed any of this stuff. Shocking Touch attunes 1 pip towards center. Armor of the Storm attunes 4 pips towards center. Seizing Truth causes fire skills to restore power per battle attunement. Prelude of Power now only restores power to the Runekeeper casting Prelude of Hope. The power cost reduction effect has been removed from Overflowing Confidence trait. Self-motivation now restores either power or morale. If traded to restore morale with Overflowing Confidence, this skill gains a power cost. Sustaining Bolt now always restores power. Sustaining Bolt now restores additional morale rather than when used with Concession or Rebuttal. Charged effect no longer interacts with Sustaining Bolt. Concession and Rebuttal now causes Shocking Words to become a small area of effect, and Concessions and Rebuttal no longer reduces your incoming damage. It now gives a small lightning critical chance bonus.
Boo.
I would presume that has something to do with PvP or something?
Maybe, but my Runekeeper is squishy enough on landscape that anything that, takes away my ability to reduce incoming damage is a boo.
Okay, I see. It no longer reduces incoming. You're right on there. That is...
I can boost my lightning critical chance with a bunch of other things, including, food and my gear. But, being able to put it up when I'm taking a lot of damage was nice.
Yeah, now I understand what you're talking about. Yes. Burdens. I'd better not go through all this stuff.
Do you have any highlights, Pineleaf?
That's what I'm trying to think of. Well, first off, the most important one is that Forced March is now overwritten by Leafy Feet. It's not in the patch notes, but that's what I noticed last night.
Ouch.
I mean, it's good. I went for this really, really fast run or two. Trudge. I tried. Oh no, a hunter's in the area. I'm going to be slowed down.
Yeah, because even a hunter that's got it maxed is only at 30%, and you can run at 40, can't you?
Yeah, right. But the hunter in question, in that case, only had it up to at minimum level, so it was even worse. I was like,
oh,
am I going so slowly?
Ouch.
What happened to Forced March? All right. Well,
you can only Forced March when not in a fellowship with a hunter.
Not in a fellowship with a hunter. No, not at all. Gambit chains are now more flexible. Gambit chains are now a sequence of 4 gambits. Any gambit other than a potency gambit will count, and neither the gambit's types nor length matters. Yeah.
Doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose of all the gambits at that point?
What?
Like if you didn't you have to use strategy and know what you were doing, and now it just sounds like you can hit any gambit you want.
Oh, yeah, there is that. Yeah, so I'm still not quite used to the new system yet because I keep on missing the fact, oh yeah, well, first of all, fights don't usually last long enough in order for me to get up to 4 gambits. Gambit chains are now unlocked automatically at level 30, at which point you also earn the Way of the Spear, which allows you to cash out advanced techniques earned for completing chains. I have yet to hit that because every time I've got to that point where I could use it, I forget that that skill exists. Yes. So it's going to take me a little adjustment. I haven't done much on the Warden. I have played a little bit, but for example, I enough to notice that I no longer am able to force march at a decent pace when there's a hunter in the party. The only exception to this rule is potency gambits, death strike, defensive strike, and goad. They do not contribute toward gambit chains because they are used along with battle memory. Advanced technique. Several new Warden skills are now normal skills bound to cooldowns rather than gambit skills requiring builders. These skills have short, strong effects and moderate cooldown times. However, rather than being freely available at full strength, they have had their potency driven by advanced technique. Both Desperate Combat and For the Free Peoples now consume your advanced technique when used and will become stronger with the additional advanced technique consumed with these skills. Yes. And you receive 1 count of advanced technique every time you complete a gambit chain, up to 3 maximum until you either consume the skill or you leave combat. Yeah, leave combat for half a second. Boop! It all pops like a bubble. And also a note about gambits. In general, we've done away with the notion of gambits having different effects in assailment. Assailment will make all the usual gambits work at range like they're used to, but there's no reason for a melee gambit to have a damage over time while the ranged version does not. Additionally, to maintain parity, no gambits are locked behind a specific specialization, and no gambits have longer than normal cooldowns. Spear gambits, and so yeah, they go through this long list of what each set of gambits does. I'm not going to read through all of those because that'll take us half an hour probably. And they also go through things about various skills in here, like red, Shield Piercer. The Shield Piercer skill has been removed. Yes, a lot of Javelin skills have been removed. So that's the other thing I was going to say. Where are all my Javelin skills? Oh, in Blue Line, probably the biggest thing to note is that Never Surrender is now a limited time skill. Using it gives you the Never Surrender effect, but with a few changes. The effect now only lasts for 20 seconds. Its health restoration only triggers if you fall below 5% morale, and it gives you a short mitigation buff for a period after the heal is triggered. Its base cooldown has been reduced to 5 minutes, and Blue Line trait reduces a further 3 minutes to 2 minutes. And that means I have to know when I'm getting close enough to 5% for it to matter, because if I don't notice it, then I'm going to be dead for not noticing, or I trigger it too soon and I waste the thing. That seems to be what happened. I think I managed to hit it right on the timing once. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of making Never Surrender the most fiddly skill I could possibly think of. And it went from a very, very easy skill to use, probably the easiest skill to use, to probably the toughest skill to use. Well, okay, there are a couple of gambits that involve, like the anti-stun gambits. I don't think I've ever successfully managed to pull that off. Because you have to know when you're about to get stunned, and then know that I'm going to be stunned. Someone's going to try to stun me in about 10 seconds. So let me set up this gambit chain so that I can. Well, I guess you don't need a gambit chain on it. So let me set up this. Okay, maybe 5 seconds then. So let me do this gambit, set off the gambit. Now I'm safe from stunning for a few seconds. And oh, he just tried to stun me. Haha, you lose. No, it always goes whack, you're stunned. Oh, you forgot to use your skill? You lose. So, yeah. But anyway, Never Surrender is now getting to that level of difficulty in using, I think. red line, I said shield piercer not being used. Yellow line, javelin of deadly force now applies to the marked and diminished debuffs of any enemies left. But what's best about javelin of deadly force is that now it has been moved up in a J. It used to be a capstone skill. Now it's been moved up so that you could get it sooner than you did back when it was a capstone skill in yellow line. Of course, yellow line is now a general skill line instead of the specialized one anyway, so that it makes it even easier to get to. So I've got Javelin of Deadly Force back. Yay! Note that Ambush is no longer requires you to be out of combat to use. It still retains its induction unless you have the Adroit Ambush trait and have used Adroit Maneuver in combat before using Ambush. And also, mark target, diminish targets, shield piercer, critical strike, wages of fear, and dodge this have been removed. In other words, most of your javelin skills. And then they go into traits for each of the lines. Now, as yellow line is no longer a specialization, it will no longer have specialization bonuses. Some of its current specialization bonuses have been moved into the trait tree. And traceries. A few traceries have had their values adjusted slightly or their passive stat changed. Some traceries have been made obsolete by the changes above, and a few new ones have been added. No existing traceries have been removed. Obsolete traceries will automatically change according to the list below, and then they give this list of 12 different changes that are being done. And other changes in the update 35 to the Warden adjusted some skill animations and VFX to improve skill differentiation and parity in skill execution times. I do need a chance to test that out. Javelin damage and values now correctly match other one-handed weapon values. Javelin legendary items now give incoming healing rating rather than tactical healing rating. Thank you. New Wardens once again start off with the ability to change only 2 builder-linked gambits. You will earn the ability to use longer gambits as you level up, and will be able to use all gambits by level 50. Many skills and gambits will be earned at different levels in this range than they were in prior updates. Thank you for letting us have them all by 50, so I don't have to wait till 75 to get my... Oh, I always forget what that one is called. It's a 4-builder gambit that had a leech to it, and it was one where you got the 5-builder gambit way early, and then you had to wait a very long time before getting the 4-builder one. The 4-builder one was really great. Maybe that's why they decided to have it at such a high level or something. But anyway, they took care of little peculiarities like that. And the Warden version of the Mossword Quest Prologue Chapter 2 Skills of an Adventurer have been updated to reflect changes in skill availability from recent class updates. For crafting! Oh, anything else about class changes before we go to crafting?
They're over?
Yeah. Crafting. Craftable traceries now appear in a separate category marked traceries instead of appearing under essences in the crafting menu. The craftable Dragach armor pieces have had their stats updated so that the critical versions are always superior to normal versions, and have had their stats updated to reflect modern class roles and statistical needs. All right. By the way, Finn, you're saying that you're still just keyboard face roll with your Warden. I've noticed that in the mid-levels at least, the Warden's healing seems to be practically non-existent. And you were with me when I was learning that too. yes, I had, whenever I was using one of the warden healing skills, I was at about 65, I think I was, and I was getting, I was in blue line, and I was just getting no healing. Okay, or I should say, so little that I wasn't noticing it, and I was not anywhere near at parity with the damage that was being done upon me. And we're doing 3-player instances, so we're not talking about a situation where I would be expecting to be taking huge amounts of damage over the time. So it was really painful. And I went into my max level character and said, no, everything was fine. Everything all perfectly fine at 140. It's just at 65, I felt like I wasn't getting any healing. I was just not seeing that my healing bar go up at all. So I gotta find out what's going on there. Maybe I should try some solo runs with that 65 character to see if there are any differences there. And Practice Makes Perfect crafting tutorial quest will now give universal ingredients packs instead of apprentice ingredients packs. Thank you. And crafting for cook, 8 new cooking recipes can be found in Loot and Angmar Reborn instances clusters. 4 recipes for the instances create foods that can be consumed during combat. And 4 recipes from the raid create foods that will persist through defeat, which is the other thing to it. Now, in one of the instances during the storyline in there that you do, I think it's after you finish the 2 3-player instances, you do get 5 copies of the food that persists through defeat, so that you can, I guess, get a sampling of what it's like. We did not see any drops of the actual recipes in there during any of those instances, but we've only played a few of them, so it's possible that you're just under the threshold of it or we're unlucky. But I have a feeling we're not going to see those recipes too often. It's going to be my guess. As for damage, Update 35 includes significant changes to how mastery and damage modifiers are calculated. For some time, quite a few changes effects have been weaker than their numbers would suggest due to the way the game previously calculated damage bonuses and the player's mastery stat. We have changes on how mastery is treated in these calculations, and then they go through all this number crunching stuff. I am not going to go through that blow by blow by blow. But anyway, just say they made significant changes to how damage is calculated. And delvings. Delvings have been added to the school and library of Famerdine. You must loot at the last chest of the instance to receive the delving rewards. The quests inside the 3-player instances now reflect what must be done in order to complete the delving. Now, I only ran that at level 65 yesterday, so obviously we didn't do the delving in there, since delvings are level cap things, but we did notice that that standing stone is right at the entrance of the school when you get in there, whether or not you're at cap. I think the same thing is true with missions, is the standing stone is there even though you can't really interact with it unless you're 140. Move the trigger point for spawning the monsters inside the school and library to the edge of the entry vestibule. This will eliminate the chance to inadvertently spam delving abilities into the creature. This will, however, also mean that the delving will fail to be enabled if the stone is not used before leaving the vestibule to kickstart the instances. Now, I did notice that there was a delay until somebody reached a certain point of the vestibule before any of the mobs will pop in and start to interact with it. So that means you don't go rushing in full bore thinking the place is clear, because you may have mobs spawn on top of you if you did that.
That could be exciting. So if you're out really wanting an adventure in the middle of an unknown amount of mobs as they spawn in.
Well, yeah, there is that. So, of course, if you've done the school and library enough times, you probably have a good idea of what the...
You'd probably know like how many to expect, but you probably wouldn't know if they're all going to spawn at once or if you're going to be able to kill a couple first.
Well, yeah.
I've seen instances behave differently depending on different things.
Yeah, you have a point there. Delvings are now somewhat easier on tiers 5 through 10. The difficulty modifiers for enemy damage and health have been reduced for Delvings 5 through 10, and enemies have had their range for which they are alerted to the player and the max range that they could call for reinforcements greatly reduced in Delvings 5 through 10. And they added tiers 11 and 12. Enemies' health and damage modifiers that used to be tier 10 are now modified tier 12. And tier 11 is an enemy health and damage is increased from tier 10 without making malices, while tier 12 adds another set of malices. And tier 10 and 12 will now add malices and take none away. Every tier below 10 has 5 active malices. Tier 10 now has 6 active malices, and tier 12 now has 7 active malices. Oh, every tier below 10 has 5 active malices? Okay. Really?
That does seem like a little bit of a lot of active malices. If it's only going to go up by 1 after tier 10 and 1 more after tier 12.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm just thinking about tier 1. You go in there and you got 5 active malices going on at once. Yikes! All malices have been reordered for Return to Cardoon. Many malices now appear in new tiers on new variants. Malices now have types. You will not face more than one of the same type on a given band. For example, no more than one malice requiring cleansing or corruption removal, or more than one damaging hotspot. This is to ensure fairness and that your class skills are sufficient to counteract the malices in a space. And they also added a variant 6. Variant 6 follows the same rules as the other variants in regards to malice types and tier banding. And switched variants to a daily schedule, down from a weekly schedule. This allows greater variety and experience. Cardaland Swap Fleet mission scheduling has been adjusted so that each mission will appear on each variant. Added epic monster skills, Delving Malices, which currently appear on tier 5 of Delvings. These malices are powerful induction effects that need to be interrupted. These malices are Sauron's Wrath, after a brief induction, buffs all nearby monsters to do extra damage. Sauron's Blessing, after a brief induction, healing all nearby allies to full health. Sauron's Ire, after a brief induction, releases a powerful flame attack. In Sauron's army, after a brief induction, the enemy calls upon the allies to join the fight against you. Sauron's Grasp, after a brief induction, creates a damaging whirlwind that targets the player. And Sauron's Word, after a brief induction, a strong fear consumes you, causing you to lose control of your limbs. And added cursed hotspots, Delving Malices, that currently appear on tier 10 of Delvings. These are boons that the enemy includes Twisted Flesh. Enemies summon a cursed hotspot that builds monster healing over time. Twisted Growth. Enemies summon a cursed hotspot that builds monster damage over time. And Twisted Armor. Enemies summon a cursed hotspot that mitigates damage more and more over time. And several other malices where they had. Now, Delving Gems. The number of Delving Gems has been reduced. Going forward, there will only be 4 Delving Gems. Zircon for tiers 1 to 3, Garnet for tiers 4 to 6, Emerald for tiers 7 to 9, and Amethyst tiers 10 to 12. We are removing the cracked for whole gem conversion. Delvings will take and give whole gems only. Upon successful completion of a delving, you'll be awarded with the gem for that tier of the delving. On delving tiers 3, 6, and 9, you'll be awarded with a gem for that tier of delving and the tier above. So you'll get 2 gems in that case. And other, now unused and cracked gems can be sold. Delving gem barter profiles have been updated to remove the cracked from whole gem conversion. And there are now 2 weekly wrapper quests for delvings that awards Virtue XP and Delving Writs for completing delvings. These quests are obtained from any of the 3 active Cardaland and Swanfleet mission givers. That is Boglan, the mission giver in Androth at Gerwin's Convoy, Hithriel, the mission giver in Hernet in Cardaland, and Irvo Church, the mission giver in Klager in Swanfleet. So that means there are only 3 delving hubs now instead of the way too many of them that they had before. And as for items, the Spring Festival Wrapper Quest Splendor of Spring now has a legendary tracery token added to its rewards. And we hope that you didn't complete that wrapper quest until after this update came out. And the 2-handed weapon vendors in Esteldine, Osgaruth, Budgeford, the Vendor Hall in Mickle Delving, Kellendim, Gondaman, Auchere, and Thorenhad now offer battle gauntlets for sale to brawlers. And there are a lot of places where their big update for vendors and several quests which now have gauntlets for brawlers. The legendary coffer of the Ukrash portrait frames description has been amended to reflect that it also gives ancient script and legendary enhancement runes, and the flowing silverstone of the tortoise should now correctly give a bonus to earning of Himbar tokens of exchange. Let's see. Anything else here? Yeah. Let's go into. There's a lot of stuff concerning monster play. All new monster player characters entering the Entmoors will have a brand new tutorial experience. This will take the player through the acquisition of blessing, corruptions, skills, and execution of skills, travel to Dar Gazag, returning to Gramswood by the map skill, explain about the unique abilities in the Intermoors, and more. New players will get the opportunity to execute these skills on the training dummy before being cut loose into the wild that is the PvMP. New free peoples entering the Entmoors also have a new experience that takes them through their first steps, visiting Captain General Ost Ringdeer and acquiring the skill Return to Galan Vrag. Players visiting the Entmoors can now obtain a weekly quest to complete battle alerting, kill, and support quests within the PvMP zone. Completing 5, 10, and 20 of these quests, respectively, rewards the player with a very large amount of legendary item XP and contributes to the reward track. A large sum of Virtue XP, a good amount of Renown, gold, a selection box to claim Entmoor consumables, and a random tracery up to legendary in rarity. There are 2 tiers in this weekly quest, each rewarding players for completing their efforts. And the amount of items required to complete quests in the Entmoors is halved in most cases. How about that? You need fewer hobbit
feet.
feet? Yeah,
Yes.
yes, you need.
I'm guessing the ones that weren't half are the ones that only required 5. So you probably need either 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And so 2.5.
Well, yeah. There are now opposing quests to kill Tyrant Bullsgulth at Grotham for players and to kill General Meldum in Horror Hollow for monster players. And they have fixed a long-standing issue where killing Bjornings, Runekeepers, Wardens, and Brawlers would sometimes not count towards specific kill objectives at the locale in the Entmoors. In other words, all the ones that were added since launch. We have added 3 new carryalls called War Spoils carryalls for both players and monster players.
Woohoo!
These will be available for purchase in the LOTRO store. Additionally, monster players can now use the trophy and potion carryalls. The skill March will now activate an overhead icon to indicate to players that March is toggled on. And I heard some complaints about that one.
Yeah, that could get annoying pretty quickly.
Yes. Updated the mines to now have Grodris patrolling the skies when she is not angry. To get her anger, you will need to kill between 30 to 40 drakes, drakelings, or hatchlings within the deepest heart of the Ice and Deep mine. Once angry, Glodris will move to the spot formerly controlled by the Free Folk or Agmaran forces. The status of the Ice and Deep mine is now correctly displayed on the map. And defeating Gondres awards the benefits of controlling the mine for 6 hours. Added new target dummies into Gramsfoot to allow for monster players to parse damage more effectively. These mimic the targeting dummies used in the Free People's side of the game. Guarendis is apparently a warg at the moment.
Woo woo!
I'm sure she'll get better.
Yes. There are some Audacity changes. Incoming damage reduction and outgoing damage bonuses from Audacity have been adjusted. Audacity for the Free Peoples, with PvP gear fully equipped, will now reduce damage multiplicativity by 50%, so it should no longer inflate the value of effects that reduced incoming damage. Accommodation costs have been reduced for Free People's Audacity equipment. PvP cloaks now give 1 Audacity, and damage bonuses from Audacity have been reduced slightly. And Guarendis does say that the March icon is annoying. Then she says that, not that I'm marching, as she's sneaking, since she is on a warg. The Tier 4 pocket item for healers in the Entmoors now properly provides physical mitigation. Leanthal's insignia now functions correctly, removing the negative effects from the user in the same manner that the monster player item Aquahun's brand works. Updated Mordir's brand to function the same as Aldolkun's brand. Bestowers formerly in the Eyes Deep are now back in the world. Free People Bestowers are in the western entrance to the Ice and Deep mines in the Static Dwarf Mine Camp. And Captain General Meldoon now wanders the streets of Horror Hollow. Be careful, monster players. He still packs a punch. And monster player bestowers now live in Grotham, and the burly Bergsgoth wanders the pathways of the Goblin Village. Same warning to you, Free Peoples. Be cautious. Now, power. We did touch a little bit about this earlier. The role of power had faded in recent years at higher levels, and we instead tended to limit skill play primarily through cooldowns. This has been a pretty big drawback in that it impacted healing in a negative way. Without a resource management element, the big heals generally shifted towards having long cooldowns or becoming not very big, and healers gradually lost much of their ability to do much burst healing. And it also lost useful mechanics based around crafting and consumables for things like power potions and high-end gear options like power regeneration gear. We want to bring it back! But one of the steps to addressing this is to bring power back to being a meaningful element in the game at higher levels so that healers are making more meaningful choices about when and how to use their heals. So power regeneration rates in the UI are now listed per second rather than per minute because the old way required you to do a lot of division by 60, I guess. Given that the average skill takes about 1 second to execute, this makes it easier to compare skill costs against your power regeneration rates without having to do the math. Power pools are now larger, scaling up through the entire endgame. A level 140 character should be expected to have a power pool in the 50k plus range without itemizing for it. Skill power costs now likewise scale up by level into the end game. Fate no longer increases in combat power regeneration and instead increases your power pool and out of combat power regeneration. Your in-combat power regeneration automatically increases with level, but you'll need specific itemization or buffs to increase it further. And base healing increase to help counter power consumption challenges. Healing HPS on allies from level 131 through 140 is increased by about 25%. This is in addition to any specific changes that have been made to heals. And potions and food. Most power restoration values have been rebalanced. Alright, now I know we talked a little bit about power earlier. Anyone have any more comments relating to changes to power?
Well, I used to feel like the Emperor in Star Wars, where I had unlimited power, but now I just feel like a hobbit without power.
I would have thought that.
No.
I mean, if you're talking about the Emperor in Star Wars, I would have you gone down to an Ewok or something like that.
That would have been a good. That would have kept it within the world that I was referencing to. So the power stuff, I think it's hysterical. I love their explanations and everything, but it's just like, for the longest time, power hasn't been a factor. Yeah, you're right. So all of my gear, everything that I have, all of it doesn't reflect anything with power or power regen or anything power, but we want to bring it back. So what you're saying is I have to get new gear. That's what I'm hearing. New gear now.
Well, seeing that we haven't noticed too much of it yet,
that's true.
If you could hold off until the expansion, you won't have to worry about ditching the gear only for power.
True. That's true. Yeah, because eventually it will. Well, we will have to re-gear anyways. Basically.
Yeah.
Right, because the next drop will be like some orc's rattle, and it'll be way better.
Right. And besides, there is the possibility, of course, that when you complete Tier 5 of the new raid that's coming. Oh, that's right. Maybe you'll get some. I
think you get some Umber Die,
upgrade
if I'm not mistaken. You complete it on Tier 5, you get Umber Die by default at that point. As much Umber Die for life. No, I guess it's what's interesting about it was that Krister is a power hog. He is not designed to efficiently manage his power. He is designed for somebody to be pumping power into him at all times because he is going to expend power. And while he's expending power, he's going to be very, very beneficial to the party. And so what I noticed was that I felt that was in line yesterday with my play, was in line with my extreme power usage. In fact, I think somebody commented on that I was using a lot of power. And so it's like, yeah, so that was classically my issue before power became a non-concern, was that I really did need a lore master in the group.
Okay.
With hit me with the power regen all the time, or else I was, and if I go out of power, then I lose all of my effectiveness. Yeah. Period.
Who was the? Well, I forgot the term. The focus character. I'm sorry, I forgot the rating term on that. The character that's that's set up so that you could click on them quickly, so you don't have to look through them?
Oh, like doing the H keys. Are you thinking?
No. I was sorry. I completely forgot the term. Is because they could set you click on them and forwards targets and all that fun stuff. So you could see who their target.
Oh yeah, target forwarding. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And I was thinking, well, if they had you there, then I could keep it. If they set you up as the target assist, that's it, target assist. If they had you set up as the target assist, then at least I could be looking in the area of the target assist anyway. See, I don't know who the target assist was last night.
Well, and I surprised everybody because typically our target assist is Rudd eternally.
Right.
And I made Runtar target assist to his surprise. He didn't even notice he was target assist until halfway through the.
Yes. That's right.
So.
That's right. And so maybe it would be easier if you had maybe the DPS target assist as the second target assist and you as the first one, so that I could keep track of your power a little bit more easily.
Yeah, and you've got a good point there too. Is this? I think this is just going to require some fine tuning and adjustments on how we deal with stuff. So we would do the multiple target assists from time to time for those reasons specifically. And so I think it might be more like you said. Yeah, we'll just adapt to it now, so that we can make it sure that as a lore master, you're more keenly aware of who needs power when. But I think and correct me if I'm wrong here too, Pine. Like this might just be that we haven't been playing enough with all the changes yet. But are the majority of the lore masters power regeneration single target, or do they have some AoE? I'm assuming they have AoE power regens.
They talked about a skill called that wasn't definitely an AoE 1, a fellowship version of Share the Power, but that might be only on a particular line. Now,
true. Yeah.
I don't think I have anything other than blue line set up on my character right now, so I suspect I'm going to have to set up to another line in order to get it, because I don't recall there being a fellowship wide Share the Power, which implies to me it's from a line I'm not typically using.
Okay.
So,
but that's a good point too. Is that now how is the lore master's role going to be changing here too? Because I know that from the captain perspective in blue line as a healer, captains really didn't have the burst healing capabilities that the other classes did. So the whole point was that the captain gets this gigantic river of healing flowing and maintains it and keeps just doing it. It doesn't matter what's really going on. It's just that you're keeping this the healing pulses maximized. And I'm wondering if that might have to be some potential adjustments on lore masters too, where they always have to keep their power, maybe low key, just keep their power regen skills incorporated into their rotations. Where they're always keying these power regen skills at a regular interval.
I know that I was using the one where you draw power off the enemies. I have been typically using that skill just for the damage in the past, even before the changes. So getting that into my rotation isn't going to be any trouble, because I tend to fall back on that skill anyway every once in a while when I say, oh, anything else I can do right now? I might as well just grab power. Even when I was at full power back in the old system, I would still do that occasion, and it's decent lightning damage. So
yeah, I think what was so incredible last night, I didn't really think about it until right now, was last night was the first time I've used a power pod in maybe years, maybe.
Yeah, good thing I didn't throw away that stack of power pots I've got on me. Yes. Let's go into quests and instances. Missions. We have consolidated Cardoline and Swanfleet missions into 3 mission givers: Baklan and Gerwin's Convoy, Ithriel in Hernet, and Irvo Church in Klager. We discussed that earlier. And missions now rotate in a way that allows each mission to be experienced in each of the variants. A travel skill to Klager has been added to Delving and Mission Barters. The Hlangaran travel skill has been removed from delving and mission barters, but can still be bartered for in the Cardland Reputation Quartermaster in Searlond. And I think all my characters that have the Hlangaran travel skill got it from Searlond anyway, so that wasn't a major issue with me in there. So I think it probably would be, in fact, probably more annoying to the higher level characters because they might be going there and not doing the local quests because they're low level quests, so they might just be going there just for the missions. So they're not going to get the rep for Hlangaran, but then maybe they don't need to go to Hlangaran anyway. So there is that. The other 4 mission givers and their delving quartermasters have been removed. And several Cardline and Swan Fleet missions have had their difficulty reduced to be more in line with other missions. In Patrol the Township, we adjusted the number of enemies that spawn at each of the patrol locations. Previously, there were always 3 enemies, and this has been reduced to 2. Additionally, we fixed an issue where you could access the bridge without physics at the outskirts of the town, and it sounds like that accessing the bridge without physics is not a good idea. And
I kind of prefer physics.
Yes, especially considering that the physics involved is the most likely is the solidity of the bridge holding you up against the force of gravity, most likely.
Yeah, I'm generally a fan of that. I
Yes.
don't want it to collapse or. You know.
In dangerous deliveries, the number of high-level enemies have been reduced. And in leadership direction, we adjusted the boss fight slightly to reduce the number of ads spawned when the boss heals and the number of times that the boss heals during the fight. Leadership. Okay, yes. If I do remember there being a particularly annoying one concerning something like that. And the mission, A Day on the Farm, was pretty difficult to complete on its second stage. The total number of Kreban to kill is being reduced to 8. And the Goblin boss in Mission Down on the Farm now only spawns his mobs once instead of continuously. Thank you. And in Sarkvorn, the Black Grave, Lilith and Ostrin's undead ally now gain more defensive stacks. Slightly increase the damage of various damage over time effects in Flodak and Loyalist's fights. Slightly increase Flodak's damage while enraged. Select items in Sarkvorn the Black Grave are now available for barter at the Cardland Reputation Barter in Searlond. These items can be bartered for Embers of Enchantment and require completion of Sarkvorn at various difficulty tiers. Mounts available from Pick a Mount selection box have had their collection information updated to reflect this. And in Mordor, Dor Amarth, quest text and drama in the storyline that introduces the Stout Axis to Dor Amarth has been updated. It took you this long. Yeah, I went onto my Stout Axe, who was questing in Dor Amarth. I had stopped there because I was so disappointed that all the Stout Axes were thinking that I was a complete outsider. And of course, it turned out that I was way past the point in there because I had done the quest despite my misgivings. So I won't be able to experience it that way. So I do notice that if you look at your quest log and into the completed area, it has the new quest text in there. So you can see what the quest text is like in there. So I was looking at one introduction. It says where I think it said something like, "Oh, I'm surprised that you came back. Are there any other of us? I mean, not of our group, but of other types of dwarves that are in the host or something like that." So they made some adjustments in there so that now they recognize you. And the quest instance House Forged Anew has been significantly updated with updates to Gimli's story and with unique text drama for both if you are a stout axe or collectively any other playable race. In addition, several of the other drama sequences in this instance have been improved and polished. Burglar and Captain Trainers have been added to Gondaman in Arid Luine. About time on that. And quest rewards for the Gates of Karn Doom have been changed to have proper stats for each helmet. And the Arctic... Yeah.
I'm curious about that, so.
Yeah, and there are several quests that now have rewards for brawlers. Singing the saplings has been made less confusing. Removing the always-on glow for the saplings, removed the misleading billboards, made the quest guide highlights more specific, and made the distance from which you can sing to the saplings bigger. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
They should have kept the signs around somewhere for nostalgia. Come on.
Quest Foremost, a leader unveiled. This quest level has been reduced from 30 to 26 and now has a minimum level requirement of 21. Mithril travel to NPCs in the Last Homely House should now take the player directly to that NPC rather than to the door of the Last Homely House. I don't think I've ever mithril to someone who's inside the... Well, let's see. Yeah, I don't think I've ever mithril to Elrond because I think whenever I've been doing quests at the Last Homely House, I've always had a milestone in Rivendell. Scaling quests now reward legendary item XP starting at level 50 instead of level 51. Level 45 class quest items now show up under class quest item in searches for the auction house. And level 45 class quest trophy items are now searchable under the auction house for class quest trophy category. Orcs and Hootbold instances no longer drop obsolete components for legendary items. The readable items from Legacy of Durin Chapter 6.3 Life on the Bridges should no longer hide out in pending loot. And the dwarf Wafi is no longer involved in Volume 2, Book 1, Chapter 11, Forged New, so the reference to him has been removed. And some additional... Oh, that's right. That's when you first get your legendary item, yes.
Poor Wafi.
Yeah, poor Wafi.
He didn't do anything.
Some additional dialogue has been added to instance the ties that bind to better wrap up the conclusion of the story. Instances, festival, consumables, and skills for cosmetic pets are no longer usable in instances.
What? The only reason I ever went into instances was to deploy my cosmetic pet, so...
Though, I mean, when you're waiting and you've all started to come back from a break and you're setting off fireworks and stuff.
Exactly! Showing off all your pets, shooting off fireworks.
Causing all sorts of chaos.
Exactly. I mean, if I could, I would have a portable sinister keg. I'd just deploy that right there and everybody would hit that. No pants, where did you go? Who knows?
Defeats in part of the Undershire will no longer send players to Western Eregion.
Did they send them to Eastern Eregion?
Hopefully they don't send them somewhere like Mordor.
Well, Eastern Eregion will obviously have been much worse since Eastern Eregion is full of level 50-ish mobs, I guess. At least Western Eregion, we're talking about level 50. What about level 20 mobs, maybe? Chickens can now travel between the Shire, Cardolan, Angmar, Carbronach Pits of Stone Jaws, and Welkin Lofts and Clovengat.
Okay, well, you know what? That bothers the heck out of me because I've been extremely concerned for years about how people become chickens and run around Middle Earth. So this is alarming to me. This is a complete buildup of chicken capabilities, and I think we should be keeping a close eye on the chickens now. I think they're more of a threat than monster players. They're more of a threat than Mordor. You know, it's the chickens are coming, you guys. The chickens are coming home to roost. Okay, I'm just warning you.
You know, Krister, I think you're going to need to infiltrate the ranks. Find out from the inside just how bad the problem has gotten.
Hi, Krister's going to stand out like a sore thumb. Have you ever seen a chicken on a war steed? Two chickens on war steeds that walk into a bar. I've had too much coffee today. I'd just like to declare that right now.
Apparently so. Into general, base healing has been increased from level 131 to 140. Allies providing HPS values have had those values increased by about 25%. This is intended to improve general healing throughput and help counteract the direct impact from the power changes. Alright. Interesting. Because I'm feeling that the Warden's healing is about the same at higher levels and has been decreased at lower levels, but that's another matter.
Hearing a Warden healing is like hearing that a captain does DPS. That just doesn't compute to me.
When
are they meant to be primary healers?
Maybe if you have a Warden who's tanking, you want that Warden to be able to heal themselves.
Well, I'm also hoping for an effective healer as well.
Well, yeah.
Because every gambit that or every energy that a warden is using to heal could be used to do another maneuver, couldn't it? I mean,
well, if you're tanking, then your main thing is collecting threat anyway. So most and since healing also generates threat, right? So,
see, okay, well then that had been my design philosophy behind my captain too, because he can. The other thing he can do is heal really well, and I thought that was beneficial in aggro in general, because if I'm pumping out maybe I'm not number one, but if I'm number 3 on the healing list, and then I'm also using my aggro skills, you hope you'd be at the top of the list the entire time at that point. You know?
Well, you do have a point there. Monster moderate basic attacks now deal more damage. Disarm effects can no longer be chained together to extend their duration. When a disarm effect first expires or is removed, there will be an invisible 15-second immunity period, which will cancel any existing disarm effects. Silence effects now have an invisible 15-second immunity period, just like above for disarms. Rebalanced food power regeneration values for obvious reasons. DirectX 10 and 11 water now has soft edges again. Water now also accepts shadows. As for power updates, the base value of maximum power items has been rescaled to better match the new scaling. Most Celebrant power potions values have been updated to better match the new scaling, and added new traceries for power management, 1 word of power and 1 word of craft with power-related set bonuses. Durab Archer and Moria Defiler enemies now have updated and correct heal induction spell titles instead of placeholders. Patrician of Rivendell, Gallant of Rivendell, and Exemplar of Rivendell are now correctly classified as event titles. The War Steed skill granting item is now destroyable. Players should no longer fall through the floor when leaving the Erebor housing provisions.
I'm always a fan of having that happen with any floor I happen to be on.
9 Slakeless's appearance has been corrected in several locations in the Ironfold, Elderslate, and Mount Gundabad. There was an errant invisible wall spawning on the bridge of Karanos. This has been removed. Well, that's good. Removed a markup of blackened feathers in mosswort that suggested they might be associated with the task. Updated a string of monstrous wing trophy indicating that it can also be used to satisfy tasks in Angmar. The court of Celeborn now has a map. Physics issues in Minas Morgul have been resolved. Female human guard NPCs now have their correct name. And there are several updates for localization. So that is quite a number of changes in there. It took me over an hour to do that? Egad.
Oh, that's nothing. What was that? Remember that other one?
Oh, yes. And, one more thing is, the last homely house has been remodeled.
Well, yeah, now that they got all that mithril coming in from being able to visit Elrond in private or whatever that mithril thing was.
Oh, that's why they did it, to pay for the upgrade?
That's right. We need another revenue stream if we're going to bring the last homely house into the modern era.
Into the modern era, yes. There are also some known issues. Angmar Reborn. It is not possible to complete Angmar Reborn Chapter 4 until the launch of the raid Guathranost, the Witch King Citadel. Yes, I noticed that. Too bad that in order to get the port, you need to finish that chapter. Yes. Tharasgar, the Vile Apothecary. Titles awarded from the deeds in Thargasar are currently untranslated. This will be corrected in a future update. And into Saint-Hor, the Poison Gardens. If you defeat Oraguin before you advance Dolog's quest instructing you to do so, you will be unable to complete that objective and therefore the quest. You can leave the instance, cancel the quest, and retake it to fix the problem. This issue will be addressed in the next update.
Okay, good, because that almost was sounding like they were saying, oh, well, too bad if you finished it.
No, I think you could run the instance again at least, probably.
Okay, good.
Yep. So, all right, that is it for the Update 35 release notes. Now, I believe that there is a planned update for next week. I think it is where they hope to address some of these concerns that they had in the known issues, and they're also going to be tweaking a couple of things with it most likely, because there's always those little things that need tweaking after a major update. So let's head into our store sales for this week. Sans, what's on sale?
This week, we have we have Go Ever On and On, but before we get to that, we have the new to the LOTRO store War Spoils Carryalls that you should all know about. A carryall that can hold different types of war spoils from the Etten Wars. And our sale this week, you can go Ever On and On with 20% off select XP boosts, enhanced XP supply, and 100% mark acquisition boosts now through March 30th. And your weekly coupon is a free tome of defense that lasts for 6 hours. The coupon code is less damage, LESSDMG, and that is also good through March 30th.
And head into our week in gaming. Krister, what were you up to?
Well, I decided I missed it so much that I decided to go back to Carndu.
Oh,
I read it instantly. It was a lot of fun checking out the new 6-man last night. I believe a couple people have checked out the 3-mans as well. But looking forward to seeing to doing that again now that we've done it. So we did tier 1. And this is typical in our group of players. This hubris develops where it's like, hey, that wasn't too bad. Why don't we try it on tier 2? And tier 2 actually went just fine until the very end. And so I think we really think that there's just some mechanics there that we have to figure out, and that'll be fine. But it was reminiscent, very reminiscent. A good job on making you feel like you're back in Karn Doom. I forgot how annoying those slugs were. But the vermin took the cake last night. All of these little rats running around were such a pain in the rear. They were just it was pretty impressive. They ran everywhere. They spawned everywhere. They dropped puddles everywhere. It was pretty darn exciting. So the main thing for me last night it was a lot of fun. Just getting used to having to think about my aggro in a little bit different ways, and then once again not feeling too bad about the res, because the res ultimately traded up. Even in Yellow Lion was at least resing one person at full morale, so we at least could get somebody back and play with that. But I think past me and the Mistral, that we are the only ones that do have the in-combat reses out of our group. So that's the other thing. It's really the 2-man was so nice. I mean, it's just a nice res, because that can literally change a defeat into victory, being able to get 2 people up at once. You know what I mean? So, but looking forward to exploring the 3-mans now as well, and then having to, and I know this is just going to be a long slog, but have to sit down and take a serious look at my gear and a serious look at my legendaries and figure out exactly what I want to do. Because if I'm going to be primarily, I would think it's hard to say if Blue Line's ever even going to make captains relevant as healers. You know what I mean? Are you really going to want a Blue Line cappy? Do they really have something special, or is it just that they made improvements, but that's not really going to sway anybody? And really, it's still going to be yellow and red are the primaries. But regardless, I had a lot of fun last night running it. I was very glad, Pine Leaf, that you were available as well. That worked out perfectly, because we had 5 people, and with you that made 6. So that worked out great.
Yeah, it also gave us a lore master.
Yeah, that was nice too. When we were realizing the power, of course, the power was now suddenly a factor again. But yeah. Go ahead.
No. I continue. Yeah.
Okay. And then in ESO, we've been grouping up the last couple of weeks, and that's been a lot of fun, running around with the group and killing world bosses and doing some of the stuff I haven't been doing solo. So that was a blast. And then still fiddling around with Starship Evo a bit, building ships, and then my friends checked out the beta for Diablo 4, so I decided to check it out too, and been playing a bit of that this week.
Now, does Diablo 4 have an NDA associated with it, or is that
it's a pre-purchase thing, so you had to actually purchase the game to be part of the beta.
Oh, okay. It was a pre-purchase. Okay, so it's part of pre-purchase then.
That is correct. Yeah.
Oh, and how is it? Is it
It's very Diablo. It's
but there's a big difference between Diablo 3 and Diablo 2.
Well, okay, so now that we're going to talk about this, okay, so yeah, I was a big fan of Diablo. I love Diablo 2, and then Diablo 3 came out, and they changed things just enough, and it was kind of when the pay-to-play stuff was a big deal. And I think they had a bunch of problems with their actual like trading system or selling system.
It was broken, yes.
Yeah, and so I was just so kind of frustrated and disappointed from it. I didn't even play Diablo 3. So coming back into it, I'm liking what I see so far. But it's interesting. It's interesting having, because Diablo was kind of one of the first ones, one of the earlier ones. And so the point and click stuff is cool, but we've been playing games a lot more sophisticated than that too, lately, and so, right. So I guess I've got to figure it out, because of course the funnest thing is finally getting your character up to snuff in Diablo, and then finding those extremely rare things, to equip your characters with. So, but in terms of just the look and feel, it's a beautiful game. It looks really nice. The graphics are nice. The voiceovers, the voice actors are great, and it seems to have a pretty good plot.
Now I remember why I was thinking of passing it by. I think its system requirements are through the roof.
Yeah, it's they definitely. Luckily, the machine I've got is pretty good. So, but yeah, the system requirements are something to pay attention to.
Okay.
And it was an 85 gig download, so just prepare yourself for that. And then that was pretty much it. So, Sans, what did you get up to?
Well, my Dragon Quest Builders 2 game on my computer, I fought the final Furrowfield boss fight, and was pleased with the final build of Furrowfield Farm, and sailed back to my Island of Awakening, so that was nice. And I found some things to repair in Cyrodiil, and figured out how to use the armory in ESO. So I set up my first character's builds, the 2 free ones that I got with the armory. So I spent a lot of time reading Champion Point tooltips and spending those. And I discovered Valheim during the Steam Spring Sale, and I've been honing my Viking skills. I've defeated the first boss, and am working on a base near the Black Forest for more exploration. So
yeah, I played that a while back, so I think they've done some pretty big updates since then. But that was a lot of fun. That game was fun.
Yeah, it sounds like there have been several recent updates. So, and we tested it with multiplayer with my nephew and my sister, and that was pretty fun too. So we could try that sometime too.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I could reinstall that. I'd love to.
So that was pretty much my week. How was your week, Pineleaf?
On my lower level lore master, I arrived at the last homely house again because I had been there earlier and I was sent out to the Trolshalls to do various quests. And so I returned in there and I was told to play some riddle games with Bilbo. So I finished up some riddle games and found a gem for Elrond's daughter. Now, my higher level lore master finally completed the Skirmisher of Middle-earth deed. Yay!
Congrats.
Yeah, and I don't know if you noticed it, Krister, but I was wearing that title last night when we were in Karn Doom.
I was too poisoned to pay attention.
You're too poisoned to notice such a... Yeah. Maybe I should have used the Bring It On emote against the Rat King, yes. And anyway, after that, I took a little holiday in Karn Doom, so I ran all of the quests that can currently be completed in there. Meaning that I'm at the stage of Chapter 4 where you've got to do the raid, so obviously we have to wait for the raid to come out before doing that, and I don't know what the rules are for the raid because they had this line and they have solo versions of all these other quests. I said, what are they going to do for people who can't do the raid? Is there actually going to be unusually a solo version of the raid? Or is this going to be something that, you're going to have a raid and maybe the raid at Tier 1 is not going to be that bad compared to how raids are? Which, as we saw in the 6-player one, that was a rather mild Tier 1 in there, and then Tier 2 sort of turned it up to 11.
Yeah.
So we got to be careful in that matter. But right now, we don't know what they're doing with the raid or anything like that, but I guess I'm waiting for that to come out. Then on the field trip, we were playing on some level 60-ish characters. I described that earlier on having some healing issues with that character. So we first visited the school, and then we ran a few skirmishes. And strangely enough, the school was the easiest of the instances that we did. And I don't know why the school was significantly easier than the skirmishes felt, because usually you think of the skirmishes as being the easier instances to run. And that is my week in LOTRO. We currently have 13 supporters on Patreon. If you'd like to join this illustrious raid of players and help support LOTRO players, you go to the donations page to support the Players Alliance on Patreon. Your money will be used for podcast hosting, website hosting, and to pay for our live shows. If you'd like to send some feedback, you can send it to podcast@lotraplayers.com. The Players Alliance has 2 shows. On Wednesdays at 7 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, we have DDO Players News, and on Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, we have LOTRO Players News. And I would say sometime about the middle of this podcast, many of the places in Europe had adjusted their clocks a little bit. So keep that in mind. You can choose for our shows at luchaplayers.com/live. And that's all for tonight. And this is Pilot Needles reminding you to skirmish responsibly.